Training Module 4.4 Crop Transpiration. In this module, we focus on the simulation of crop transpiration. The learning objective of this module is to understand how AquaCrop simulates crop transpiration. In this module, we look at crop transpiration from a well-watered soil and the actual crop transpiration, which might be less when water stress affects the transpiration process. In AquaCrop, evapotranspiration is separated in its two processes, crop transpiration and soil evaporation. It is described by multiplying the reference evapotranspiration with a crop transpiration coefficient for crop transpiration and a soil water evaporation coefficient for soil evaporation. The crop transpiration coefficient is proportional to the canopy cover. The more canopy cover you have, the higher will be the crop transpiration coefficient and the higher will be crop transpiration. The soil water evaporation coefficient is proportional to the uncovered soil, 1 minus Cc. The more canopy cover you have, the smaller will be the soil evaporation coefficient and the less soil evaporation. In this training module, we focus our attention on crop transpiration. Crop transpiration from a well-watered soil is described by multiplying the reference evapotranspiration with a Kc coefficient. Now that Kc coefficient consists of two terms, the Kc TRx, which is a proportional coefficient, and Cc. Transpiration is proportional to Cc. Actually, it is Cc star. It is the canopy cover adjusted for micro-advective effects. When the crop is well developed, Cc is large, and the crop surface, which receives energy, is more or less the same as the canopy cover. However, when the crop is still very small, Cc will be small, and the surface on which the crop receives energy is still relatively small. However, during the day, the crop can also receive energy sidewards. As such, the Cc has to be increased. That increased Cc is called Cc star. It is the Cc adjusted for the micro-advective effects. For example, if Cc is only 50%, actually 65% of the canopy receives the energy, and the transpiration will be proportional to that 65%, the Cc star. Transpiration is proportional to Cc, and that proportional factor is given by the Kc TRx. It is the crop coefficient for maximum crop transpiration when canopy cover is complete, when Cc is 1. Here we see the transpiration from a well-watered soil. On the one we have the reference surface, the grass, which has a Kc TRx of 1, while on the other side we have the barley, where the proportional factor is larger than for the reference surface. It is 1.1. It describes the difference between the reference surface and my crop. The crop will transpire different than my reference surface, mainly due to differences in the aerodynamic resistance. For most crops, the proportional factor, the crop coefficient for maximum crop transpiration, is around 1.1. However, there is an aging. Starting from mid-season, the canopy ages slowly and undergoes an reduction in transpiration and photosynthetic capacity. So the Kc-TRX becomes smaller. And once senescence is triggered, the reduction in transpiration becomes stronger. This is shown in these slides. At the top we have the canopy development in function of time, and at the bottom the Kc coefficient for transpiration in function of time. Since Kc is proportional to Cc, the two graphs looks very similar. But we can see that indeed, due to the aging effects, the Kc coefficient starts to reduce in mid-season stage and finally collapse in the late season stage. Let's now have a look at the actual crop transpiration. Transpiration is simulated by multiplying the reference evapotranspiration with a crop coefficient for transpiration, which is proportional to Cc, and a Ks factor. The Ks factor, that's a stress factor. It describes the effect of water stress on the transpiration process. In AquaCrop, water stress can develop due to a shortage of water. This results in stomatal closure, and it is described by the water stress coefficient for stomatal closure. AquaCrop also describes the effect of excess of water. When there is too much water in the root zone, we have waterlogging problems, we have deficient aeration conditions. And that is described by another Ks factor, that is the Ks factor for waterlogging. When the soil water content in the root zone drops below a threshold which is a crop characteristic, it is a conservative crop parameter. When it drops below that threshold, given here by the red line, then water stress will develop. And it becomes complete when permanent wilting point is reached. We have also the soil water coefficient for deficient aeration condition. Here it is when the water content is above a threshold. Then the Ks coefficient becomes smaller than 1 and the transpiration reduces up to 0. This slide gives an overview of all the factors affecting the simulation of crop transpiration. So, by describing the crop canopy development, we know what is Cc. Cc is adjusted for microadvective effects, and so we are going to use Cc star. Crop transpiration is simulated by this equation, where Et0 is the reference evapotranspiration, the evaporative demand of the atmosphere. Transpiration is proportional to Cc. The proportional factor is crop specific. It is conservative, and during the simulation it is adjusted for aging, and at senescence it collapses. When stresses affect transpiration, we introduce a Ks factor. There is a Ks factor for water stress. When there is too much water, waterlogging, or not sufficient water, then we have the Ks for stomatal closure. Additionally, also soil salinity stress can affect crop transpiration. This is described in another training module.